Hello, welcome back to the Birds Blast, the quintessential Eagles pregame show here on the It's a Wrap Sports Network. I'm sorry, the Birds Blast with Kyle Quinn, who is a show producer for the midday show over at 94 WIP on your FM dial. Kyle, happy Thanksgiving weekend. How was your Thanksgiving, man?
It was great, man. I enjoyed some bad football games.
Yeah.
Minus the end of that first one, but other than that, it was a good time.
So, Kyle, I want to get your take, and that's an interesting point you bring up. We typically save these shows for Eagles reflection and look ahead, but I think what happened on Thursday, especially in that early game, deserves a little bit of backtrack, even though it had nothing to do with the Eagles, or maybe it did. Let's get into that. Matt Eberflus, I guess that's how you say his name, the former head coach of the Chicago Bears, who was fired yesterday, the first time in, 100 years the Bears have fired a coach in season. Many people might think that it was based solely on what happened on Thursday, but it's not. It's been building over the last 3 seasons. Kyle, what side of the coin do you come out on? Coach's fault or player's fault for the mismanagement of the last 35 seconds of that Bears game?
So there's a little bit of blame to go around. You know, Caleb Williams could have obviously hurried it up a little bit more when he got to the line. But, I mean, we all know what we'd be saying here had the Eagles done that. Everyone would be yelling about Nick Sirianni and how the team's not prepared for good situational football. It was some of the most absurd football I've ever seen. I mean, like, they had about 30 seconds left with a timeout, and really they had multiple options there besides the one that they went with. They could have ran a quick play to the middle of the field and called a timeout, or they could have called a timeout and tried to run a play or two toward the sideline and get them a little bit further up with a chance to at least kick a field goal to tie the game. They did neither of those things. In fact, I don't know what part of the plan that was supposed to be, whether that was part of the plan or not, but either way, I think everybody watching knew that after that was done with, regardless of whether they were going to fire Eberflus at the end of the year or not, he had to go the very next day. I mean, like, that was one of those, like, we talk about fireable offenses all the time. That was blatantly, obviously, a fireable offense, like, where you can't really come back from that. And then, of course, the players after the game saying, like, yeah, I thought we did enough as players to win the game. That's a nail in the coffin right there. So that was some of the most absurd football you'll ever see. And from the Eagles' perspective, I mean, a Bears win there obviously helps the Eagles a great deal for the number 1 seed. I don't think anybody went into that expecting a Bears win, but, you know, when they started making it close like that toward the end, you know, that final play, really, you're kind of like, just what the hell? Like, I just can't wrap my head around what happened in that game. So, I mean, it was not the greatest football game, but you do come away with that with, like, you know, one of those memorable moments watching it with family on Thanksgiving. Like, you know, that's one that people are going to talk about for a while. So, I mean, I enjoyed the end of it, even though it didn't really help the Eagles, just because it was so inept and ridiculous.
I mean, we gravitate to the last play of the game, the 35-second play, but I want to go back to the 2 plays prior to that, where there were penalties and you know, they were what, in the 20-yard line? They were really like in a chip shot field goal area, and ended up being outside the target line when that last play of the game was snapped. So there's no guarantee that would have been a made field goal there, but you snatched the opportunity straight out of your kicker's foot to even try it. But yeah, Kyle, I mean, obviously that is what happened. I mean, regardless of whether you blame the players, and I actually kind of go 60-40 players, maybe 70-30 actually. But it's a culture too. It's a culture that the team could actually even put themselves in that position, and that the players are that mentally unprepared to go into a situation like that, and that falls on the coaches.
Yeah, and this isn't really the first time that's happened. Like, the Bears, they blew that game against the Commanders, that Hail Mary. That was bad coaching situationally at the end of that to get them, you know, to even give Washington a chance really at that last shot at the end zone. And then, like you mentioned, the 2 plays before, what we saw with the clock running out was them running a play out of shotgun when really all they needed to do was go up the field a little bit more, maybe get a few more yards and give their kicker a better chance, where they were in field goal range. And taking a sack was bad on Caleb Williams. But again, he's a rookie, right? Like, they needed to better prepare their players as coaches for that situation. So just all around, totally ridiculous.
It was, and it did cost the Eagles an opportunity to make up some ground without even playing a game. But let's now focus our attention on your 9-2 Philadelphia Eagles 7-game winning streak, a 37-20 destruction taking apart of the Los Angeles Rams that follow the same recipe that every single game is followed during this 7-game winning streak. Get off to a slow start, rely on your defense, and then let Saquon Barkley do the rest. 255 yards, setting a single-season Eagles rushing record. He is a lock to set the single-season Eagles rushing record, as well as potentially an outside chance, or probably more than a good chance if he continues at this clip, to set the NFL record and potentially, again, strengthen his candidacy for MVP. But, Kyle, I want to overview the game with you for a second because, once again, we got off to that shaky start. And if it wasn't for a turnover on the opening Ram drive of the game, I think this game goes a different way, honestly. I do, because we would be a 14-3 potential deficit at this point. But overall, how'd you feel about the game?
It was like straight out of the 2024 Eagles game script. Struggle in the first half and then just completely dominate the second half and pull away both defensively and via the rushing attack. I mean, Saquon Barkley's just every single week, you're like, holy crap, dude. Like, this guy is just unbelievable. Like, this offensive line with Saquon Barkley is one of the best. It's got to be one of the best combos for a rushing attack that we've ever seen as Philadelphia Eagles fans. And I know that's saying a lot because we've had quite a bit of good rushing attacks, but like just the flat out skill that Saquon Barkley has is unlike any Eagles running back that we've ever seen. I mean, he's a combo of all of the best Eagles running backs that we've seen. So Saquon Barkley domination, AJ Brown having a great game, a turnover-free game from Jalen Hurts, a little bit shaky from the defense to start the game, but they ended up tightening it up, turning it around, and that's to be expected against a veteran quarterback like Matt Stafford and pretty good weapons on that offense. I mean, Puka Nacua is a beast. So all in all, I think that was a really good defensive output against a team that's, pretty damn good offensively. Just an all-around classic 2024 Eagles win.
Yeah, it was, and it followed the script to the T. And let's talk about Saquon overview. 25 carries, 255 yards. He was averaging about 10 yards a carry, 2 touchdowns, runs of 72 and 70 in this game. A.J. Brown, you mentioned 6 receptions for 109 yards and a touchdown. Jalen, an effective game manager-like type of performance, 15 for 22, 179 yards, averaged about 8 yards a pass. Only took 1 sack for 12 yards. Finishes the day with a 77.9 QBR rating. And yeah, I mean, I guess everything that you're saying is correct. But I do want to, I'm not going to let it go because I can't, Kyle. Have we become too reliant upon Saquon Barkley? And has this offense gone the way of the one layer? And is that something that concerns you going down the stretch?
Well, I can't say they're too reliant on Saquon Barkley because they are 9-2. So I think they're appropriately reliant on their best player. Now, here's the thing, and I know this has come up a lot, but I keep thinking back to 2021 when all we could do was run the football and we couldn't pass to save our lives. I mean, this team can throw the ball, and the difference is, I think you saw it on Sunday, is when A.J. Brown gets the ball in his hands, right? Like, Hurts doesn't need to go bombs away 50 yards down the field in the air. Right, he can get the ball to AJ Brown to AJ Brown's hands, and he makes something happen with it. Same thing with Saquon Barkley off screen. When Devontae Smith gets back, like he can make a big play happen. They have the weapons on the outside to make big plays happen without the quarterback having to go 60 yards down the field. And I know that's something that we crave to see, but it's funny because when we go back to a season like last year or 2022, it's like, oh, they're passing all the time. Like, why don't the Eagles run the ball? Like, run the ball. And now we're running the ball all the time. And it's like, were we going to pass it? It's just like, it feels like nobody's ever really going to be satisfied. I think that they're able to. Now, they might not ever really have to be in a game where Hurts throws the ball 30, 35 times. That's okay. I mean, the defense is playing well enough and I think should be good enough later on in this season for them to not really have to rely on that. Now, we could see this Sunday, right? Like if the Eagles fall behind a little bit, the Ravens have a very dynamic offense. The Eagles fall behind. We're going to find out just how much that is a benefit to our offense or a hindrance to us. But I think as of right now, I can't go and say that we're too reliant on the best player on our offense.
Yeah, the Ravens are the first overall rated offense in the National Football League. But I want to push back a little bit of what you said. I agree. Get the ball into the hands of A.J. Brown and your playmakers, Devontae Smith as well. But this, once again, reliance on the sidelines and not wanting to throw the ball to the middle of the field continues to haunt me. On the game, 22 attempts and only 4 to the middle. For the season now, 285 attempts, only 36 to the middle. So they're not using the middle of the field for whatever reason, and we can debate those reasons in the offseason if you want. I believe it's because they don't trust Jalen Hurts to run that kind of Kellen Moore, part of that Kellen Moore playbook because of whatever reason. I got what you're saying, and you mentioned the deep ball, 50-yarders. Listen, when you're living on the outsides, when you're living on those sideline patterns, I mean, I would say 60 to 70% of the passes you're going to try are going to be of that variety, Kyle. So I see what you're saying, and I am not one of the ones who was crying, oh, well, now we're running too much. No, that's not what I want. I wanted it at 50-50. I want to set up the pass with the run. We're not doing that. We're setting up the run with the run, and it's working effectively right now. But I think if they have to turn the ball over to Jalen Hurts' arm, that the offense is going to go off a cliff because of the one dimension of his passing ability at this time.
Yeah, I mean, so that's we'll see, right? If that ever ends up happening and they really off Saquon Barkley, then we're going to find out what Hurts has. You do see them going over the middle just a tick more than they were in the beginning of the season. Actually, the biggest change that I think we've been seeing with the offense is now they're doing play action off of Saquon
a little bit
Barkley.
More, yeah.
And they're doing that a lot. And I think that's definitely out of the new elements of the offense. And you're starting to see them incorporate that a little bit more. It's certainly helping Jalen Hurts. Now, the thing that I'm wondering, and we might find this out someday, we have this offensive line, which I think one of the better Eagles offensive lines we've ever seen assembled. And that's saying a lot after, the years and years that we've had of good O-line under Jeff Stoutland. Is this Saquon-led rushing attack defense proof? Are we going to go up against the number one run defense and just it not matter because our O-line is just so good? We've seen that before. I remember, and I think it was Jalen Hurts' first year starting in 2021 when we went up against the Saints, who were the number one ranked run defense, and we put up 250 yards on them running the ball. Sometimes it just doesn't matter. It's our good versus your good, and you're just not going to beat us. So part of me wonders, are we ever going to see that point where we have to rely solely on Jalen Hurts' arm? I just don't think so. I think the running game is just that good where we might just bully people all the way.
That's a great point, and we've mentioned this week after week after week with these slow offensive starts. I don't know how they're – I know how. The defense is setting up their ability to run the football as much as they have, absolutely. But as I mentioned at the top of the program, I think that fumble, that one turnover that they caused in this Rams game severely changed the direction of this game. And I don't know if it's – opening drive of the game, that's a pretty bold statement, but I honestly think if they would have went in – because the defense wasn't doing much in that opening drive, and if they would have went in and scored, we're looking at a 14-3 deficit heading into the second quarter potentially. That could have changed the entire dynamic of the rest of the game. But hey, they got the turnover; it didn't happen, and what happened. So let's now talk about that defense. Eagles entered the game as the first overall rated defense in the National Football League. It's a clash of titans on Sunday, as you mentioned, and they're doing it where they got to continue to do it, and that's with the linebackers in the secondary. But the defense took a shot, a hard hit. I think a harder hit than I think a lot of people are willing to admit right now, and maybe not. Brandon Graham lost for the season. What does that do for an already shaky edge position on this football team?
Yeah, well, they got to find a way to replace his production. Not only just rushing the which he's been great at. And he was probably having one of the better games of his career randomly in year 15 against the Rams. And just huge bummer to have to lose him for the season. But one of the best things that he does, sort of quiet, is how good he is against the run. You'll see Brandon Graham blow up a run play pretty often, right? And he sets the edge really, really well. So just that veteran presence on the outside, it's going to be tough for them to replace because some of the young guys that they have here, Nolan Smith, Jalen Hunt, they're young, right? They don't have that experience setting the edge that Brandon Graham does. So they're going to have to step up. It's also where the Bryce Huff bad signing and injury hurts you a little bit, but they're going to have to find a way to replace Brandon Graham's production on the outside. Now, I think the thing that helps you a little bit is that the Eagles aren't getting sacks because they're doing so well rushing the passer. They're getting a lot of sacks because their coverage is so damn good, and they're giving the guys a lot of time to get home. So it's sort of a symbiotic relationship, which we haven't seen very often on an Eagles defense. Usually it's just the front four guys getting after it, and rotating another fresh four guys and they're after it. But they actually have a really solid full complementary unit back there. So now I know you're going to mention this one, but there's another injury on the back end that I think hurts them even more in this upcoming game against Baltimore, and that's Darius Slay, who's quietly been putting together a really good season. And you saw that when Isaiah Rodgers had to go in and he started getting targeted the entire second half and cooked. So that's going to be interesting to see on Sunday how they recoup the loss of both of those guys.
Well, those young kids are going to learn on Sunday because we'll talk about a test to try to set the edge against Lamar Jackson, and also the secondary, the coverage issue. You know, if there's a quarterback better at extending plays in the NFL than Lamar Jackson, then I don't know who that is, because he's one of the best, if not the best, at extending plays back there. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting test for that Eagles defense as they continue through this. But let's just put a bow on what they did on Sunday. Matt Stafford. He had a game. I mean, some of this is garbage time, but 24 for 36, 243 with 2 touchdowns. Nakua, 9 receptions, 117 yards. He's going to get his. There's nothing you're going to do about that, but they limited the damage, and what they did was they might not have limited Nakua's damage, but they limited Cooper Kupp's. 8 receptions for just 60 yards. The Ram rushing attack was led by Williams with 72 yards. But you know what? And Stafford had 15. And Condrum had 5, so about 100 yards total of rushing offense for the Rams. I'll take that any day of the week. All that equaled Kyle Quinn, even though they had a 13-point first half. Once again, it's still bothering the hell out of me that they can't get off they can't get off quicker. But 37-20, 9-2, 7-game winning streak, and are starting to run away with at least the NFC East. And Kyle, I got it. This was not on my bingo card, and I don't think it was on many Eagle fans' bingo card, 9-2. And as we look at Sunday, and we're going to get into Sunday here in a second, but we look at Sunday, and what this means to me, if you remember, a year ago this Sunday was the 49er game, and that game was basically the tone setter for the rest of the season. I'm not looking at Sunday like that. Different team, different situation, different year. Yep. But Sunday, to me, is going to be a tone setter, not wins and losses. Now, I think they lose Sunday. You know what? No big deal. It's an AFC team, whatever. It's how they win or lose on Sunday where I am going to be looking at. And how do you feel about that from that sort of standpoint of Sunday being sort of an anniversary game of the 49er, the start of the collapse?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I think too much about the 49er game last year anymore. I almost wish that we could get the 49ers this year because, they thought it was real cute getting to catch us while we were slipping last year after what we did to them in the NFC Championship, as though it mattered or meant anything that game or proved anything. Like, we could just as very easily find them this year and kick their ass if we had them on our schedule too. So that kind of stinks from that standpoint. But I just think this team's way more equipped to handle adversity than last year's team was. And I know they're 9-2, and last year they were 10-1, but we can all admit we feel way better about this year's 9-2 than we do about last year's 10-1. You're not always just what your record says you are, right? Absolutely. So I don't know. I guess I'm sort of over the demons of the last year's collapse at this point.
I'm not. I still think they're out there because, once again, there are things to be concerned about with this team. It's not all sunshine and roses for the Eagles. It really isn't. And the Jalen, the Saquon up here and the Jalen down here, to me, is, they got to be more even. And I think, hopefully, knock on wood, Saquon does not get hurt and nobody finds a way how to shut him down. But you cannot, Kyle, go into every week thinking he's going to rush for 255 yards.
I mean, we keep saying that, and then he doesn't. I'm tired of doubting Saquon Barkley, and I don't know. I will say right now, I guarantee there's no way they even come close to doing anything similar to what they did at the end of last year. They're just so much of a better football team. I mean, we can go through, game by game last season, all the bad teams they played and how they just barely squeaked by, and they were letting all those teams throw for 300 yards on them and putting up 30 points on them. I mean, it's just different. Like, we're burying bad teams this year. We're even burying some good teams this year, some decent teams. So just a totally different vibe this year to last year. I'm totally over it. Totally over it.
All right, I'm totally. We have 2 more things to do about the Rams game. So you had the Rams, or you had my second week in a row, I messed that up. You had the Eagles, I had the Rams. Of course, I was wrong yet again. I am now 3-8 on the season. You are now 7-4, but it's not over yet. I'm still mathematically alive in this race. You had A.J. Brown as your player of the game. I had Cooper Kupp. I think it's safe to say that it was Saquon Barkley. Yep. I don't think there's an argument to be made there. So we both missed on that. Stat pack from this game. Red zone 2 for 5, 24 for 42 now on the season. Kyle, less than 60% effective in the red zone. I guess when you're getting runs of 73 and 72, that doesn't really matter. But as we move down the stretch of this, and football starts for real this weekend, this is it, man. This is when all the contenders rise to the top and all the pretenders fall to the bottom. You got to be better in that red zone, especially once the weather starts getting a little bit more rough on the East Coast and in the North. You got to clean that up a little bit in the red zone.
Yeah, and I don't understand for the life of me why the Eagles don't use A.J. Brown often in the red zone.
Yeah,
I just don't get that. He's a monster, like size-wise, just mismatch-wise. Like, I don't know why they don't move him around, throw him a fade, just give him a slant, like anything. The dude is a monster. Like, use him in the red zone. That's what he's supposed to be, like, it's supposed to be what he's good for, not the only thing he's good for, but it's one of the advantages mismatch-wise that you have when you have a guy like that. Use Goddard more in the red zone. I just don't understand why they don't really throw in the red zone very much. And I guess when you have the O-line, you have Saquon and the tush push, stuff like that, then it makes sense you'd want to lean on your bread and butter there. But I don't know why they don't use A.J. Brown more.
First half points, 13. Now 10 points on average in the first half of games. It's got to be better. 24 in the second. They're up to 17 points on average for the second half. Penalties, the Eagles did commit 4 more penalties on Sunday for now, 59 on the year for 418 yards. It's getting up there a little bit, Kyle. 5 penalties for 38 yards per average on a game. I'm okay with the 38 yards, but the numbers going up. They did force a 1 turnover, up to 14 now on the season. They did not turn the football over, and they're stuck at 11. They gave up 1. Jalen was sacked once for 12 yards. 30 sacks now given up on the year. They got to Matt Stafford 5 times. They have definitely stepped this area of their defensive game up. Yeah. Now 33 for 194 yards. Kyle, there was a time not too long ago where we were talking about why they can't get home. They were getting pressure, but they couldn't get home. They're getting pressure, and they're getting home now. And you mentioned one point of why. Maybe it's coverage. Is there anything else that you think the front seven is doing to get more pressure?
Well, I mean, at the very least in this Rams game, the Rams have bad tackles. Like,
they do.
I feel like Brandon Graham was dominating that dude all day.
And they had injury issues, too, along the offensive line that day, too.
I think actually the emergence of Jalen Carter this season has helped him out a lot. He's taken on a lot of double teams, and he's freeing up guys like Milton Williams, who you're seeing win his one-on-ones in a big way. And he got through to Matthew Stafford, so that's been good to see. Jalen Carter, once again, I think played every single defensive snap. That's 2 weeks in a row now. So he's, all the questions that we came into the season about him and his conditioning seems to be going the complete opposite way with him. I mean, it's going great. So I think the emergence of Jalen Carter up the middle is kind of freeing up some things for some of the outside guys.
And don't forget, everybody, I haven't plugged my own network since we started this. We are watching this on the It's a Wrap Sports Network. Everything is brought to you here by the It's a Wrap Sports Network. Please give us a like, subscribe, share, and hey buddy, this is the It's a Wrap, so help us out as we're growing this thing from the ground up. Fourth down effectiveness, 0 for 1. Eagles only went for it once. Really didn't have to do it much more than that. Now 12 for 20 on the season, 60% effective on fourth down efficiency, but it's good to see that number low. That's good things. All right, Kyle, let's turn the page now because we're headed to Baltimore. We're headed for a potential Super Bowl preview, which, whatever. But 8-4 Ravens versus 9-2 Eagles. Eagles will go into this game sporting their white tops and green bottoms. Ravens with the purple and black home uniforms as per Gridiron database. Weather in Baltimore, 45 degrees at game time, but it's 4:30, so it's going to get a little chillier as we move through the night, but partly cloudy, no chance of rain. Just a typical late November game on the East Coast. Let's talk injury report. Kyle Quinn, you mentioned the Darius Slay situation. He has been ruled out as of yesterday. And also the fullback, I guess now they're calling him a fullback, Ben Van Sumeren is also out. Devontae Smith, though, is probably the biggest name of the players that are still listed as a questionable. He's questionable with that hamstring problem. Devontae Smith missing a potential second game. Does that kind of tip the Eagles' hand offensively again if, say, Devontae is not available in this game?
Well, I mean, not necessarily. They were able to use A.J. Brown in a big way, and he was effective last week versus the Rams without Devontae Smith. So obviously it hurts you. Devontae Smith's a really good player to have on the outside, but Devontae Smith's way more important for the January stretch run than he is for one game in December. So if they feel like they need to hold him out to make sure that he's good for the long run, then I'm okay with that. I think we can get by without him.
That's all right. That's right, Kyle. It's not late November for this game. It's early December. God damn, get caught up on the world here. I agree. I agree because as we'll talk about it, I know this game is being looked at by a lot of Eagle fans for certain ways, but I just don't. I think it's a lot less important than a lot of people are giving it credit for. So
Yep.
we'll see. But for the Ravens, interesting. Kyle Van Noy, who is the co-sack leader on that defense, the outside linebacker, has been listed officially as doubtful. Charlie Clore, the tight end, is out. Arthur Mullet is out. Michael Pierce, defensive tackle, is questionable. And cornerback TJ Tampa is also questionable. Big news with the offensive line book or OLB and Van Noy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Van Noy would obviously be a huge hit on a defense that already kind of struggles to stop the pass. So they're definitely going to need one of their best sack getters on that side of the ball. So, definitely have to keep an eye out for that one.
And with all that, with the injury, the weather, the Eagles wearing the white and greens, the Ravens going with their menacing purple and black, all those things, Kyle Quinn, what is going to happen at the twilight hours of Sunday afternoon at M&T Stadium in Baltimore?
Yep. So I know they're going up against a good team. I know they're underdogs. I know it's a tough spot. I'm just tired of having any doubts about this Eagles team at this point. Like I don't think I would bet against them, against Baltimore. I think also Baltimore is kind of in a low-key bad spot right here, coming off of the emotional game, the Harbaugh playing against Harbaugh, and you know that you're playing against your brother when you're going for it on fourth down on your own 16.
Oh, yeah.
Playing against your brother more than that. So obviously they wanted to go win that game for their coach, and then it's now a short week for Baltimore, right? They played Monday night, whereas we played Sunday night, having to travel back from the West Coast. So I think this is a better spot for the Eagles than some people would like to let on. So I think it'll be close, but I do think the Eagles can pull out with a win here.
I like all the like the mirror image stuff that the Eagles are going to face this week. I love the fact that the Eagles defense has got to go up against a Derrick Henry. I love that. It's a true test for their rushing defense. I love the fact that they're going up against a Ravens offense that is currently ranked, I think, third in the league in passing. I definitely want to see that Quinn Mitchell and Cooper DeJean get their names called. I want to see them in coverage. I want to see them actually try to, be what everyone thinks they are. And I do to a certain extent. But I love all the parallels of this game. I love Saquon going up against the Ravens rush defense. I just think this is it's a really evenly matched game. There might be a slight edge on the quarterback play going towards the Ravens when you have the reigning MVP and a better player, honestly. That's everything we want Jalen Hurts to be, except for the fact that he can't win in the big games. But I love the comparisons of this game. And I think it's going to come down to whether or not we can set an edge and contain Lamar Jackson from extending plays or making plays with his feet.
Yep, I totally agree. It's going to come down to whether we can stop that dynamic run game. I think our secondary is good enough to handle some, the receivers aren't great, but Lamar Jackson does extend plays. So I think it's going to come down to a lot of limiting damage between Henry and Lamar there.
And do you think this game, honestly, with all the comparisons and all the comparables, do you think this might even come down to coaching, with Harbaugh and Sirianni potentially having to out-strategize each other? And does that make you feel concerned a little bit?
Not really. I mean, I don't think Harbaugh's really necessarily put on a masterclass this season of making good coaching decisions. Neither is Nick Sirianni. But I guess the way I look at this game, coaching-wise, it could come down to Vic Fangio, right, is coaching of the defense. And if there's one guy that I think I would trust at this point, it's probably him. So if it does come down to coaching, then I like our chances with Fangio. And
with all that said, Kyle Quinn, what are your 3 keys to Eagle victory?
Yeah, so we just talked about a second ago, but limit the damage that you take in the run game. Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, they're going to get theirs, but if they can limit that, then I think they're off to a pretty good start because that's sort of their bread and butter. I know they can pass well, but it starts with Lamar and Derrick Henry. The reason they're able to pass so well is because of that threat that they have with Derrick Henry and Lamar. So if they can limit that, I think they'll be okay. I think they need to give Isaiah Rodgers some help, because they can't let him get picked apart with Darius Slay being out of this game like he did last week. They need to have a better plan for how they're going to stop that. Lamar does have a good arm there, and he is getting his guys the football in space. So if they can help out Isaiah Rodgers, I think they can limit the damage there offensively as well. And the third one, I know the Ravens have a really good run game. Or run defense might not matter, but if it does, they need to be ready to exploit that bad Ravens secondary. It's not that good. I know Devontae Smith's out, but that's been the biggest Achilles heel on the Ravens defense so far this season. They need to be able to expose that bad Ravens secondary. And if they do all that, still think it's going to be close, but I think the Eagles will be able to come out victorious here.
31st ranked passing defense in the league is the Baltimore Ravens. You're absolutely right. And that is, again, another interesting comparison here. We've been I've been on Jalen Hurts for not proving himself as an elite level passing quarterback. Well, he's got an opportunity on Sunday to shut me up against that 31st ranked passing attack. So we'll see.
Yep.
My 3 keys to Eagles victory. Number 3, pressure and contain all at the same time. Don't over pursue. Set those edges. Keep Lamar Jackson under control. Don't let him get out there. Don't let him extend on plays as much as he's probably going to try to. But keep doing what you use those young athletic members of defense to really, and I would not be surprised or would be against the Jalix Hunt maybe getting opportunities in that role, or even Jeremiah Trotter Jr. getting an opportunity in that role to try to set an edge and try to just keep Lamar Jackson running around the field behind the line of scrimmage all game long. So pressure and contain. Number 2, let's not overthink this from a coaching standpoint. Continue down the same road you've been going over the last 7 games of this winning streak. The same formula. It's been working. Use it until it doesn't work. But also, my number 1, and now I'm writing it in big capital letters, Kyle, because I'm tired of having to say it every week. Give me that opening drive touchdown, Kyle Quinn. Give it to me. Give it to me. I need it. And the deeper, no opening drive touchdowns the entire season, and only 2 touchdowns in the first quarter. That's got to change, Kyle, heading into the playoffs.
Yep, I might never come, unfortunately.
Yeah, it might not.
Sort of look that way at this point.
No, it's not. All right, Kyle, give me your winner, your score, and your game MVP.
All right, so I do think it's going to be close. I'm going to pick the Eagles. I'm not going to bet against them in this game. I'll go 28-24. And let's go back to the A.J. Brown well. See if we can exploit that bad Ravens secondary. And A.J. has a good game.
Again, let me remind the folks at home, Kyle is now 7-4, and I am 3-8. But I think, honestly, if I do lose this game, I might be mathematically eliminated from playoff contention. So I need a win here, baby. Mm-hmm. I'm going with the Ravens because I think all those things that I said, I think that what's going to come out at the end of this is who has the football last. I think it's going to be one of those games. It ain't a blowout. It's going to be a back-and-forth slugfest. Ravens 34-31. I think they have the ball last, and they find a way to win. And give me the MVP as the MVP, Lamar Jackson. So,
man, a 31-point defense or point given up for this defense would be pretty big letdown. So
I think it's good. As I said, I think these 2 teams cancel each other out in a lot of different ways on this team or throughout this game. I think they're very evenly matched. And yes, it might be a Super Bowl preview. With that, let's go to our question of the week. Oh, no, I got one last thing to do. Our new segment, of course, is our power rankings. This is where I give you my power rankings. Heading into week 13, change at the number 10 position. The Chargers are out. They're out. They're done. Seattle is going to be my new number 10. Number 9 is Green Bay, 8 Minnesota, 7 Houston, 6 Pittsburgh, 5 Baltimore. That means the Eagles go from 6 to 4. They've moved into the top 5 of my power rankings. Buffalo, no change to the top 3. Buffalo, Detroit, and Kansas City are my top 3 in my week 13 power rankings. Kyle, do you want to push back at any of that for me?
The only one I think I would push back on is I think Houston kind of stinks. I don't think
they're fading, man. They're fading.
Yeah. So that's the one I'd probably move out.
You're okay with me pushing the Chargers out of the top 10?
I think if I'm pushing Houston out of the top 10, the Chargers sneak back in at 10 for me. But
I'll take that under advisement heading into next week.
Good.
All right. That leads me to the question of the week, the segment of the show where after all week long of locking myself into a room and coming up with the best question I can possibly find, I like to hear Kyle's responses to that. And I'm going to give it to you right now. Super Bowl or bust seems to be the flavor of the water around Philadelphia these days, Kyle Quinn. And as we talked about for the past 35 minutes, I don't think this game on Sunday is going to change I don't think it affects anything good or bad about a Super Bowl push. I think the Eagles will survive a loss, and I think that they win. It's a great watermark. It's a great mark against the wall, litmus test, all those analogies you can use, but I don't think it defines their season. But Kyle, we're getting to that point. and things are starting to come clearer in the playoff picture. Are the Philadelphia Eagles a legitimate Super Bowl threat in the NFC?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, their biggest competition is the Lions, who, I know it was a short week division game on Thanksgiving, but the Lions are vulnerable, right? Like, I think we're yet to see the unstoppable force versus immovable object, which would be an Eagles-Lions NFC championship game. I just don't see another team in the NFC that's quite on the Eagles-Lions level. You can maybe argue the Packers, but unless the Packers win that division, they'd be coming to Philly in January for a road playoff game. And I much better like our chances in Philly versus Green Bay than I would having to go to Lambeau. So I definitely, yeah. I mean, if you want to look at it as three teams from each side that are Super Bowl contenders, the Eagles are absolutely one of them out of the NFC.
Now, if you were from the NFL, the marketing standpoint, and you had no dog in the fight either way, ratings-wise, would you be pushing for an Eagle-Lions NFC championship game?
Yeah, I mean, that's the game everybody wants to see. They're the two top teams out of the NFC, two best records. I think people have been sort of speculating on what a potential Eagles-Lions matchup would look like for a while now. We'll get to see the Lions versus Packers, right? They're division rivals. We'll get to see the Lions versus Vikings. We've seen Eagles-Packers. Really, the Lions-Eagles is the one that everyone's yet to see so far. So, yeah, I think that'd be an awesome matchup.
So, from a marketing standpoint, Vikings-Cardinals, not so much for the NFC championship game.
I don't think
that would work out either. All right, Kyle, before I let you go, please let the people out there know where they can find you.
Yep. So on the 94 WIP dial, 94.1, every Monday through Friday, 10 to 2. I'm producing for Joe and Hugh, and then on Twitter at Kyle_Quinn WIP. And
back here every week as we break down the week that was and the week we look ahead at the next opponent on the Birds Blast with Kyle Quinn, the quintessential Eagles pregame show. Kyle, have a great rest of your weekend. We'll talk next week, man.
Thanks, buddy. Go Birds. See you, Matt.
All right. Kyle Quinn. It's been a very civilized Birds Blast with Kyle Quinn this year. It's our 5th year doing it together, and we have not been at odds much. I haven't really been arguing with him as much as I usually have in the past. And I don't know if I'm changing, he's changing, we're both changing. I am getting older, or we're just maybe more in lockstep to what actually is happening. But there's a great, it's always great to talk with him every week. But I want to remind everybody on this network today, we got you covered for your Flyers action later tonight. I'll be back at around 11 o'clock tonight, or around 10. For the Blues Flyers post-game Clear the Ice. And tomorrow, it's big time right here, the Birds Flyby, the new It's a Wrap Sports Eagles post-game show, will make its debut immediately following the Raven Eagle game. Sal G is your host with the most on that, as he will take you through the Eagles post-game with a special, semi-regular, permanent co-host. I'm not going to tell you who that is. You got to tune in to find out. So, make sure you're fixed into that tomorrow at 7:30-ish, right after the game, as we will bring you the best in Eagle postgame with the Birds Flyby here on It's a Wrap. And that is going to wrap me up, folks. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Hope you enjoy the rest of your holiday weekend. And we're getting into the nitty-gritty. As I said, football starts now. November or Thanksgiving weekend is, to me, the beginning of the football season, when the contenders rise to the top and the pretenders fall. We saw what happened last year, where the Eagles, who were a pretender, fell. Starts today, or started Thursday. And for the Eagles on Sunday, a big game, but not as big as I think a lot of people think it is. But it's definitely going to be a watermark game. We'll see where this team is. We'll talk later. You guys have a great rest of your day and an even better tomorrow. See ya.
I'll be coming up hot for a minute. Everybody know the drop when I'm in it. I drop the top when I'm in it. Everybody know the drop when I'm in it. Yeah, I'm so. Everybody know I'm You know when the click through. Try to send this possibly a so big burn.